Left. Sorry, that's my thing.
Book corner.
Hello, I'm Ayla, this is Tiff, and this is Georgia, and today we're discussing fairy tales.
Fairy tales.
So it would fall over then.
Such as Hans Christian Andersen, Doctor Who Time Lord Fairy Tales, and the classic treasury of magical stories. We're also going to touch on Brothers Grimm and other fairy tales, but these are the main books we have with us today. Okay, so where should we start?
Start with Brothers Grimm because they're the original.
And they do tie into
Everything else.
Well, how about with your comparison of The Little Mermaid? The original story and the Brothers Grimm version and the Hans Christian Andersen version and Disney's version. Well, it's very simple. Basically, like the other two versions, she falls in love with the prince. He ends up marrying someone else, and she ends up becoming sea foam.
No!
It's a sad story, you're not meant to laugh. After she's given up her voice and loses her legs, her sisters give up their gifts so she can be saved by like the sea gods, and she becomes sea foam to live on forever, which apparently is a happy ending.
Okay.
It's Hans Christian Andersen.
So basically every fairy tale apart from Disney, they pretty much die.
If we follow the Grimm's
synopsis.
tale, yes.
Yeah.
Or the Hans Christian
Whereas
Andersen ones.
Disney very fluffitize things.
Until recently, though.
Yeah, until recently.
Because if we look at other old fairy tales like Tangled, which was originally Rapunzel, she actually saves herself and kills her abductor.
Yeah.
If you look at it, her abductor dies, which you never used to find in the fairy tales.
Yeah.
And Pocahontas is dark as anything.
Pocahontas is weird.
So, whereas Disney made it all, they love each other and they're both of the same age and consenting.
We were saying about how Disney can show the growth of women in society, whereas fairy tales like that one,
With Sleeping Beauty.
it's all pretty much the same.
They need a prince to make them better. Like Cinderella.
Women are second class.
Yeah. Which is why I think growing up I loved these stories because I'm a bit dark. I like the dark fairy tales. But I preferred authors like Roald Dahl who put them on the head, like with Cinderella, where she ends up not marrying the prince because he beheads her stepsisters, who she didn't like a whole lot, but you know, she didn't want them dead, did she? And she marries a jam maker.
Ooh, jam.
Which I think has a nicer ending than she marries a prince who basically doesn't give two damns about her siblings.
I think the original fairy tales are more realistic because in that day and age that is what would happen. You would be beheaded or
But nowadays it's not the message you want to send to kids, is it?
No, I get that, but then
I think the point of Roald Dahl is he showed that fairy tales could have the dark elements, but they didn't have to be that realistic.
yeah, but if they're doing like the fluffy fairy tales as we'll call them, is that setting unrealistic expectations for kids? Because
I wouldn't say that with Roald Dahl.
no, but like Disney, for example,
They are getting
better.
Yeah, they are
Moana
getting-
and then
better.
we've got Pocahontas, Pixar, who from the word go have not allowed the fluffy image.
yeah, but if you think about like our generation compared to like George's generation, we had the prince has to save the princess.
They were starting to come out of that though with Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah.
Because technically Belle saved the Beast in the end. And we won't go further into that
Spoilers.
thorn because we get into arguments over Gaston.
Drop him! That's all I'm saying about that one.
Poor Luke Evans.
But yeah, you've got other stories though, like Hans Christian Andersen's Ugly Duckling, which no one's ever had to really change. About horrible histories. Because they had it turned into a pie, which is just...
Wait, what?
Horrible Histories, Series 2. They have the Ugly Duckling, they're telling the... Series 1, sorry, they're telling the fairy story of the Ugly Duckling. But they set it to actual historic periods, and they make it the medieval times, where a swan was a royal delicacy. So he becomes a beautiful swan, and instead of living happily ever after, he gets turned into a pie, which goes with your realistic theme. Whereas Hans Christian Andersen had him living happily ever after. So that's for someone so dark, it's a fluffy story. Seeing as we looked at one of the other stories in there, the red shoes, and she ends up cutting off her feet to escape these dancing shoes, and it turns out she goes up to heaven.
Don't remember that bit.
It's
what we read
a very
at the end.
fine line between it being realistic and it being too creepy.
I think the original point of fairy tales was to tell a story, a message.
But fairy tales originally were meant for adults and not children.
Yeah.
So
Hence the Brothers Grimm.
yeah, so they've kind of evolved over time.
Yeah, they are very dark.
And it's like everyone will know, like the fairy tale will stay the same, but everyone knows different details.
Yeah, because I'm sure Georgia grew up knowing the Disney stories, mostly, of Cinderella and stuff.
Yeah, she marries the prince and live happy ever after.
Yeah.
And the stepsisters and mother have to slave away in the castle.
Whereas I knew the original stories and, like I said, the Roald Dahl version, where they were a bit more...
But I think that's just overexposure to the fluffy Disney world.
Yeah. I think it all depends on what you learn as you grow up.
But it's not just Disney, you know, you get like...
It happens in schools, doesn't it?
Yeah, but you get like,
Same with plays and stuff, they all end the same as the Disney story.
Yeah.
you get like movie adaptations of it as well, like Cinderella's been done God knows how many times.
And it always ends the same way.
Yeah, I mean, they'll...
It's because of the... You can't really... If you portray, say, the Brothers Grimm aspects to everything, you can't really put that in cinema because children won't be able to watch it.
Well, then you'd age-rate it, wouldn't you?
Yeah, but
Which
then
they did with
you're
Red
appealing
Riding
to a
Hood
very...
a couple of years ago. They did a horror of Red Riding Hood.
But again, then you're only appealing to a very slim line of people who love Cinderella.
Then you've got TV shows who get the balance a little better, like Once Upon a Time, because they had it scary and stuff, but not so scary that children couldn't watch it.
See, that's what I loved about Grimm. Granted, it was not really for children, but it explained in theatrical terms the Brothers Grimm stories in a fun and exciting, like, police drama sort of way, and it was a very, very good TV show.
Yeah. You've put down about the Cinderella. What have you put down?
The Doctor Who timeline, fairy tales, Cinderella and the magic box.
It still ends the same way, but it has, because I know you haven't
Twist.
read it, it has a twist in the sense of, spoiler here by the way if you haven't read the book, the story has the twist of the Doctor is her fairy godmother, one of his incarnations, or her incarnations now.
Spoilers. Well, no,
Spoiler.
I'm sorry, that's only a spoiler if you haven't been on Facebook over the past few days.
Exactly.
Or Twitter or Instagram or anything.
And in return for helping her go to the ball and meet the guy she wants to marry, she just has to help him stop an alien invasion. Not a bad trade-off, to be fair.
It's still the same
story, but
storyline.
it's got a nice different take
Yeah.
on it. And I think it's a more believable take in the sense of it's no less worse than the original story where she goes to a ball, then she leaves a glass slipper, and then out of all the women in the kingdom, she's the only person that fits that shoe. You know, there's none of that nonsense in the story if I remember.
It's not like, you know, we can share shoes.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
People have the same size feet.
Exactly. And apparently Cinderella was meant to be a 5. Well, that's me. That's also like hundreds of other girls, you know?
See, if she was a size 3, That would be me, because I'm the smallest. Feet.
Your feet are tiny.
But it just shows that putting a twist, such a small one that they don't change the whole story, but putting such a small twist in, adding another character made it a little more interesting. Because I don't know about you guys, but I hate Cinderella because of Disney. I can't stand it, and I can't stand any there's one film adaptation I will watch, and it's called Ever After, and it has Drew Barrymore in it, and it's more science-based. There's a lot less magic and stuff in it. And it's just because I don't like stories where it's all the girl just sits in her tower, or the girl goes to a dance, or the girl falls asleep after eating a poisoned apple.
Or pricks a finger on a spinning wheel.
And a guy has to go save her. And that's not me being a feminist, that's just me going, well, sometimes, like in Beauty and the Beast, or Mulan, or quite a lot of stories actually.
The girl always saves the boy.
Or it's equal.
Yeah.
You know, they work together. Like, there's another Doctor Who story about a girl and a boy saving each other and their whole village from Slovene. You know, they work together with the boy's father to stop the Slovene. You know, that's a nice story. It didn't have to involve one of them waiting for the other, or either gender having to be the main saviour.
Yeah, so we circle back to realistic things, because that's what a relationship is. Sometimes you save them, sometimes they save you, sometimes you work together.
So does that mean our fairy stories that children are learning are teaching them bad habits in the sense that they have to do stuff?
This is what I was saying before.
Yeah.
Is it setting unrealistic expectations? And why? And even to this day, even Disney, why is it man and woman? Why is it not woman and woman, or two
That is
men?
very true.
Because
I think that's why stories like Frozen and Lilo and Stitch have done so well, because they're not about getting with someone. Lilo and Stitch, it's about a girl saving her friend and two sisters at the same time. A 19-year-old who's managed to go give up probably her education or something because her parents died, and look after her little sister. There's not a lot of people that would do that at her age, because she's quite young in the story herself. And it shows a positive role model image, doesn't it?
yeah.
And it shows kids to love your pets, even if they're weird blue aliens.
They have like 4 arms.
Yeah, you get my point. And like, as much as a lot of people find Frozen annoying, the fact that Anna falls for Hans and thinks she's in that stereotype, I must get a prince, I must marry a prince, knows nothing about him, as Christoph points out, and then later punches him and goes, no, I don't want to be with you, I don't need you to be happy. You know, me and my sister worked it out on our own, we didn't need you, you just made things worse.
It goes back to the age-old stereotype, though, of man must pay for food, man must do this, man must do that, women do nothing sort of stereotype,
like
but
with-
it's not like that.
With the Disney stories that they've fluffed them,
Yeah.
is our generation like going to change them?
I think we're starting to see that.
You know, will the stories eventually change again with each generation that passes?
It depends on what the media look as a whole is, because if you look at like 20, 30 years ago, some films that we still watch today, I mean, look at Snow White, Disney's first full-length feature. That's still watched today, but a lot of kids understand that that's not how things have to be, if that makes sense, when they're taking messages from the film. Yet it is still hugely popular. And I think that's the same with the stories. No matter what we want society to view, children, male, female, undecided, are going to still read these stories and fall in love with the stories, and I don't think they care whether it's the prince gets the princess, or a prince and a prince, or a princess and a princess, or whatever.
It's like Princess and the Frog. It's like she's not even a princess, she's a bar. Like she
She's
has
frog
a
for
job.
half of it.
Yeah, she had a job. She was working in the kitchen. She was trying to get money to get her own place. And
So more realistic.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Setting
like
better goals.
the prince thought that she was a princess because she was dressed up in a fancy dress.
But I do agree with Tiff that I think the next step Disney and that need to do is show some
same gender
gender relationships and whatnot. Give some more role models, because they're doing really well with like Moana and Anna and Elsa and Tiana and that. But they need to try harder. They need to make sure they're giving role models to everyone. And there's some stories in here that could easily be translated into that. You know?
Because even though society is more willing now, there's still people and kids that are being brought up as that's not normal, that's not okay, and it is.
Yeah. I mean, you could take the story of the shepherdess and the chimney sweep. No one says they have to be male and female.
No.
It could be the shepherd and the chimney sweep, or the shepherdess and the chimney sweepess, or I don't know the female.
No, I don't think the chimney sweeper has a different gender for the word.
You know what I mean, though. You could take a normal fairy tale and just
change it slightly.
yeah.
It's
Tweak
like
it.
this year. One of my old favourite books was The Magic Stories, and inside that it was the king of the polar bears. It's like, and I even asked my mum, it's like, why can't it be a queen?
There's nothing saying it can't be, it's just when the stories were set, stereotypically, it was a king. That's what I'm saying. Are we as a society and a new generation going to change that to make it more equal?
Well, there was aspects of sort of them changing stories, and the fact that it wasn't immensely popular but hoodwinked. It changed Red Riding Hood into being
a badass.
Yeah. Something you don't see in the original story anywhere.
Which is the point. It's good to have a flip. And also removing the fact, getting a whole new villain in the form of something that most children would find cute and fluffy, the rabbit, and making the big bad wolf actually quite a nice guy. And I think that's good. Showing Red Riding Hood to be someone who's adventurous and wants to do stuff, and not want to be the little girl who skips off to her granny's
Not
house.
gonna lie, the granny's the ultimate badass in that film.
Oh yes. Pretending to be sweet old granny and then doing cool stuff behind the scenes, I think is
Parachuting off a mountain or something
Although
like
the
that.
second one just don't watch. Just they ruined the whole
Yeah,
thing. But yeah, I think the fun of stories is making your own interpretations of it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's at least 2 stories in the Doctor Who book, which came way after Hans Christian Andersen, obviously, that are completely new, because we struggled, like nearly all the stories we could find comparisons to where they were like twisted and changed versions of classic fairy tales, but
it's like there's a couple.
in a good way.
Yeah.
And then there's 2, and they're a bit creepy.
The Guardian of Statues was the first one.
And the Grief Collector.
Yeah. Which I suppose the Grief Collector would be like the Grim Reaper.
Yeah. But they're not stereotypical Doctor Who stories at the same time. They're still in that fairy tale very firmly.
So
fairy tale setting.
They're not classes as a fairy tale. If they're still fairy tales, and then like modern Disney is still technically fairy tales, what does a fairy tale actually class as?
You know, a fairy tale's a fictional story, isn't it?
But then anything could be a fairy tale.
Well, I think that's the point, though, isn't it? With books. Books are fairy tales.
Yeah.
All of them.
I think it's more a tale of let's say a fictional tale of a land that doesn't exist, of a prince. So in most cases, a princess and a prince, or something along those lines. It's more of a folk tale of a land that doesn't exist.
Yeah. Well, that's like Brave, because Brave's a folk tale. It's based on, like, the chessboard, for example, and the Four Kings story. That's based on an actual real-life chess set that's found in Scotland. So, fairy tales and folk tales can be based on real-life places and real-life stories. It's how you get, like, that's how they pass things down for years, isn't it? And telling the story of someone who was brave enough to forge her own path, but also mixing in an even older story about a father who wanted to split off his kingdom. That's quite common. You had a lot of like real life stories where that happened, didn't you? Where say a father had a massive kingdom, multiple sons, well I'll give you the east, I'll give you the north, I'll do this, I'll do that. And then you inevitably always get one that's like, no, I want it all to myself. You're misbehaving.
No, I did nothing.
The definition of Braveheart, though, that is literally the point of the film.
Yeah, but Merida's a bit cooler than the guy from Braveheart. And that's meant to be based on a true story, and it's one of the most inaccurate things ever. Brave doesn't claim to be
inaccurate.
Does it? So, but yeah. I think the thing about fairy tales is you learn lessons from them, and they're starting to go in the path of change.
Yeah.
But you shouldn't expect too much of stories that have been there for thousands of years.
Oh no, obviously not. But I'm thinking more of the newer. Okay.
Yeah.
More of the newer stuff that's coming out.
Well, I think that's why me and you both loved that fairy tales book so much, because it took classic heroines and actually made them heroines, like Snow White and the Seven Keys of Doomsday. She saves the day. She's not eating an apple, dying and waiting for someone to kiss her awake.
Woman comes up and says, "Eat my apple."
Yeah, but in real life, you can tell the older stories from the newer ones, because like in real life, you teach kids not to take things from strangers.
And do not talk to strangers.
Exactly. Whereas in the olden days, they would,
Mm.
because everyone was nice and friendly.
Yeah. But then again, the old stories have lots of good lessons in them, which is why we keep teaching them to our children.
Yeah.
Like Goldilocks and the Three Bears. Don't go into someone else's house and steal their stuff. You will pay.
And don't sleep in their beds or break the chairs.
See, what I don't like about that story is that she doesn't actually officially get punished for it.
How do you know? How do you know she didn't go
In
home
the
to her mum
original
and got
story, they ate
grounded? Oh, lovely.
Yeah. But in the Grimm's Tale and stuff like that, she got
They
eaten.
did punish her, but the modern.
But the modern day era with people the one that everybody knows, she just runs away and that's it.
I think a good old fairy tale / folk tale or whatever you want to call it that gives a proper lesson that you can still maintain to this day is The Emperor's New Clothes. Because it teaches you to appreciate what you have in life and teaches you humiliation. He thought he was above everyone. He was so proud. He would not believe he was being taken for a fool, and that these guys were clearly not making any clothes at all, you know. And the point where he was too proud to say anything, and everyone was too... what's the right word? Scared, embarrassed. No one wanted to say anything themselves, and it took one little boy who just basically went, he's not wearing anything, you know. So I think it teaches children to appreciate what they have, and basically just be grateful, and obviously not be gullible, as in to believe something that's clearly not true, which I think is a lesson that sometimes people forget as well. Some of these have a lot of good points that they need to then re-remember as adults. So perhaps it's good that we're teaching them to our kids because we're re-remembering the lessons ourselves. We did also look at fairy stories, and we noticed obviously a key difference between fairy stories and fairy tales. Is fairy stories are literally most of the time just a book of stories about fairies. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but they didn't even have any of the classics beyond A Midsummer Night's Dream. Whereas fairy tales don't have to involve a fairy.
There's a few that actually do.
Yeah.
Cinderella, and that's about it.
Alice and the Shoemaker at a push.
Sleeping Beauty.
Yeah. But yeah, and the only one that we've actually listed that was in there was A Midsummer Night's Dream. So we've left that to one side.
But even that's not a fairy tale, because that's Shakespeare.
Yeah, it is a fairy tale.
It's still Shakespeare though, which was
Then
like...
Shakespeare can't write fairy tales?
I'm not saying that!
You can have
Stop putting
fairy tales
words in
that
my mouth.
play. Peter Pan,
That's another debating story.
Sleeping Beauty, Snow White,
Wizard of
Cinderella,
Oz?
Wizard of Oz.
So that was not a fairy tale.
So that kind of disproved that theory, didn't it? Do you have anything more to say on fairy tales?
No.
Right. So I think we'll leave it there for this time.
Okay.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.